named Devabhaga had a son, Uddhava. Now, so they're first cousins, and they're very, very dear, just like Krishna and Arjuna, first cousins. Shishupal was also a first cousin. So that's not everything, but very dear to Krishna. We spent some time discussing who, A or B, who is more dear to Krishna, Arjuna or Uddhava? And it's a toss-up, because one could make an argument in favor of Arjuna, and one can easily make argument in favor of Uddhava. Very dear. So dear that Krishna relied upon Uddhava for good advice. Now, Krishna doesn't need anybody's good advice. Krishna is the intelligence of the intelligence. And Uddhava was very intelligent. And intelligence comes from Krishna, but Krishna would ask Uddhava what to do. You know the circumstance? There's one very celebrated circumstance. The celebrated circumstance was Krishna's in Dwarka, and two messengers come from two different directions. One came from Indraprastha. Indraprastha was the headquarters of Yudhishthira, because Mayadanava built this fantastic city in Indraprastha on behalf of Arjuna. But when Arjuna said, no, I protected you, Kshatriyas don't take gifts, that's like mercenary, no thank you. Krishna said, I'll take. You want to do something, build a nice capital for the Pandavas in Indraprastha. So they're in Indraprastha. At a certain stage, Yudhishthira is ready for Rajasuya Yagya. Rajasuya Yagya is a formality where someone is crowned the emperor of the world. And Yudhishthira was planning to perform the Rajasuya Yagya, and he wanted the guest of honor to be Krishna. So he sent a messenger to Krishna, all the way from Indraprastha to Dwarka, to invite Krishna to come and preside over the Rajasuya Yagya. So one messenger came from Indraprastha, and a second messenger came from many, many kings who were put in prison by Jarasandha. The ministers, the king sent a messenger, help, relieve us from this circumstance. No, it wasn't Jarasandha. Who was the king that had put them in prison? Huh? Huh? They were in prison. And whose prison? Huh? Jarasandha. Jarasandha. Okay. So, I don't think that's right. So, Krishna turned to Uddhava. What should I do? I'm getting two invitations. What should I do? And Uddhava said, well, the Rajasuya Yagya shouldn't be performed until all other kings are conquered. And there's one king that he hasn't conquered yet, that's Jarasandha. So you go and kill Jarasandha, and then the Rajasuya Yagya. So that sequence, go and deal with Jarasandha. And then he made a plan how to deal with Jarasandha. Jarasandha was a demon, but demons also get strength from performance of rituals and sacrifice and performing, just like we were discussing. Anyway, they do processes of Vedic kriti, and they misuse it. They get merit from something that's meritorious, and they misuse it. So that's their duskritis instead of sukritis. And he was a sukriti. He was a Duskriti. So he was known for giving charity to Brahmanas. So you three, you, Krishna, and Arjuna, and Bhima all go dressed as Brahmanas and beg charity. And he'll say yes. And for charity, you want battle. Interesting charity for a Brahmana to do battle with Jarasandha. It worked. Long story short, Uddhava was the advisor for Krishna, a dear friend and very, very wise. And one of the reasons, one that's given to why he was very wise, of course, is he's dear to Krishna, but he was a learned disciple of Brihaspati. And who is Brihaspati? The spiritual master of whom? All the demigods. Brihaspati's way up there, and Uddhava was his learned disciple. And he was also a Vasu who descended to assist in Krishna's Leela. Who is another person who was a Vasu who assisted in Krishna's Leela? Bhishma Dev. Bhishma Dev. When Bhishma Dev was fighting with Parashuram, Parashuram couldn't defeat Bhishma Dev. Parashuram couldn't defeat Bhishma Dev. After 30 days, a voice came from the sky. Don't try to defeat him. He's a Vasu. There's a match, an even match. So put down your battle axe. So he did. So Vasus are very powerful. And although Uddhava was known for being a minister and very wise, he was also very powerful. And he assisted Krishna. So, and most important, he's a dear, dear, dear devotee of Krishna. So he's way up there. And the last instructions that not only Krishna gave to Uddhava, that Krishna gave to anyone, was given to Uddhava. This is a painting from the third canto, chapter 4. We're going to read from third canto, chapter 4 in a minute. And it is a description of Uddhava sitting before Krishna at Prabhas just before Krishna's departure. And he asks Krishna some questions. So we're going to read the question that he asked in the last instructions that Krishna gave to Uddhava. Seated there with Uddhava as Maitreya. There's later chapters in the third canto. There's a meeting with Maitreya and Vidura. Maitreya and Vidura. And Maitreya gives transcendental knowledge to Vidura. So what I've been doing for all of these classes is we're chanting together the following verse 1, 2, 4. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam udirayat. Before reciting this Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest. 4. One should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead Narayana, unto Narayana Rishi, the supremmost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Now, the other day, Uma wanted to know some more about Narayana Rishi. So just today, I sent her a document that gives lots of information about Narayana Rishi, because we're going to go to Badrikashram, or Badrinath, which is where Narayana Rishi are. There's a wonderful temple of them in Badrinath. We'll visit the temple and hear Katha about Narayana Rishi. And one of the things that's a detail, he's a partial incarnation, specifically, Angsa avatar, partial incarnation. but an incarnation. He's in the category of incarnations, but of that category. So Uddhava, after Uddhava heard Uddhava Gita from the 11th canto, we're going to see the topics of that discussion between Krishna and Uddhava, but that wasn't the last discussion. The last discussion was this one. It's another painting. There's Krishna on a young banyan tree near the sacred river. There's Uddhava appealing to Krishna to give answers. Krishna with his four-armed form. And there's the old Maitreya hearing the entire discussion. So the chronology goes, we've been saying this a few times, but hear it again is fine. Krishna's pastimes had concluded. Krishna's pastimes are summarized primarily in Canto 10. It goes up to chapter 90 of Canto 10, 90 chapters in Canto 10. And at the end of Canto 10, there's some misfortune. The misfortune is that there's a curse, where it indicates the curse doesn't happen quite yet, but the Pandavas, the Yadu dynasty members are cursed by sages, and it's a long story. I've told it a couple times. As that's going on, Uddhava, being very dear to Krishna, understands Krishna is going to depart. He's going to finish his pastimes, and he's going to depart. He knows Krishna so intimately. Krishna didn't say, he just knows. So the painting, beautiful painting, he's falling at Krishna's feet in Dwaraka and appealing to Krishna to please take me with you. Don't leave me alone. And Krishna, he asks Krishna some questions, and the question-answer format is followed for 23 chapters. How many chapters are there in Bhagavad Gita? 18. How many chapters are there in Uddhava Gita? 23. Uddhava wins, right? There's more than 700 verses in Uddhava Gita also. It's very, very robust. And it's not different. You'll see, because we're going to I'm going to read some of the last chapter of Uddhava Gita, just some verses. So you see, it's the graduate study of the undergraduate study. It's Uddhava Gita. It's Bhagavatam is the graduate study of Bhagavad Gita. So here's a nice painting, a close-up. Uddhava's got tears. Krishna's glancing lovingly at Uddhava. And 23 chapters go like this. I list them. It starts with chapter 7 because chapter 1 is the setting is Krishna decides to leave. 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 from Canto 11 is another discussion, a philosophical discussion that's related to a festival that's being held in Dwaraka by Vasudeva, and during that festival that Vasudeva is holding, Narada Muni is there, and Vasudeva takes the opportunity to ask some questions of Narada. In answer to Vasudeva's questions, Narada tells a whole 5 chapters of discussions between King Nimi and the Navyogendras. So it's a nice section. And then the section ends with chapter 7. Chapter 7, Krishna begins instructing Uddhava. Uddhava asks questions, and Krishna gives answers. And then the story of Pingala, detachment from all that is material, the nature of fruitive activity, the symptoms of conditioned and liberated living entities. That's 5 chapters. Here's another 5 chapters. Beyond renunciation and knowledge, The Hangsa avatar answers the questions of the sons of Brahma. Krishna explains yoga system, like Bhagavad Gita. Krishna's description of mystic yogic perfections, the Lord's opulence. That's 10 chapters. Here's another 6. Lord Krishna's description of the Varnashram system, 2 chapters just on Varnashram. 19. The perfection of spiritual knowledge. Pure devotional service surpasses knowledge and detachment. Remember, knowledge and detachment is an earlier chapter. So spotlight goes to devotional service, pure devotional service. Krishna explains the Vedic path, the elements of material creation, which is interesting. That comes after all this elevated talk. The song, the Avanti Brahman, philosophy of Sankhya, modes of nature and beyond, the Ila Gita. There's a personality, Ila, and he's having a discussion and he's giving some teachings. Krishna's instruction in the process of deity worship, Gyan Yoga and Bhakti Yoga. So the 23rd chapter is Bhakti Yoga. What I went to the trouble of doing is printing out some of the final verses of Krishna's instructions to Uddhava, because that's the topic. And it's on Bhakti Yoga. And there's a lot. I'm just going to read a little so you get a sense of how similar it is to Bhagavad Gita. Going from chapter 29, text number 8, I'll read a few verses. The personality of Godhead said, "Yes, I shall describe to you the principles of devotion to me, by executing which a mortal human being will conquer the unconquerable, death. Always remembering me, one should perform all his duties for me without becoming impetuous. With mind and intelligence offered to me, one should fix his mind in attraction to my devotional service." Very familiar. One should take shelter of holy places where my saintly devotees reside, and one should be guided by the exemplary activities of my devotees who appear among the demigods, demons, and human beings, either alone or in public gatherings. With singing, dancing, and other exhibitions of royal opulence, one should arrange to celebrate those holy days, ceremonies, and festivals set aside specially for my worship. With a pure heart, one should see me, the Supreme Soul, within all beings, and also within oneself, to be both unblemished by anything material and also present everywhere, both externally and internally, just like the omnipresent sky, which is a very nice comparison. Right now we're in the sky. We're in a house. So the house means the house is in the sky, which is, by Sankhya, the subtle elements carry or contain the grosser elements, grosser elements, grosser elements. So when you have gross elements, just like here's a wall, there's a sound. But sound is an ether, which means sound is in the wall. Otherwise, there wouldn't be sound. So we're in the sky. So similarly, Krishna is within everything because he's the most subtle. He's more subtle than the sky. He's everywhere. He's everywhere. Now, he's everywhere by his Brahman feature. He's everywhere by his Paramatma feature. And is everywhere by his Bhagavan feature. Question. Where did Lord Nrsingadev appear from? But from the pillar? Really? Where, from the pillar. Where in the pillar did he come from? Huh? From earth. From earth. Yeah. So Krishna comes from earth. Or the earth comes from Krishna. Both. He's everywhere. The Bhagavan, the Paramatma feature is everywhere, but the Paramatma feature is a partial appearance of the original. So he's everywhere, in one sense. And he's in his own abode in another sense. Double talk, right? From him who constantly meditates on my presence within all person. Now, this is Krishna, the person, Bhagavan, speaking. For him who constantly meditates on my presence within all persons, the bad tendencies of rivalry, envy, and abusiveness, along with false ego, are very quickly destroyed. Disregarding the ridicule of one's companions, one should give up the bodily conception and its accompanying embarrassment. One should offer obeisances before all, even the dogs, outcasts, and cows, and asses, falling flat on the ground like a rod. People would think you're a crazy person. Until one has fully developed his ability to see me within all living beings, one must continue to worship me by this process with the activities of his speech, mind, and body. Such transcendental knowledge of the all-pervading personality of Godhead, one is able to see the absolute truth everywhere. Freed thus from all doubts, one gives up fruitive activities. Indeed, I consider this process, namely, using one's mind, words, and bodily functions for realizing me within all living beings, to be the best possible method of spiritual enlightenment, my dear Uddhava. Because I have personally established it, this process of devotional service unto me is transcendental and free from any material motivation. Certainly, a devotee never suffers even the slightest loss by adopting this process. So, etc., etc. This is the final chapters. The topic is devotional service or bhakti yoga. So now I'm going to go to the concluding words of the chapter. With fixed attention, there's last verse in chapter 29, the end of the Uddhava Gita. With attention fixed, meditate constantly upon these instructions I have imparted to you and assimilate their essence. Fix your words and thoughts on me, and always endeavor to increase your realization of my transcendental qualities. In this way, you will cross beyond the destinations of the three modes of nature and finally come back to me. Here's the commentary of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, and it ties into our topic. Reveal to Narayana and others what I taught concerning bhakti and gyan. Now that instruction comes after he finishes Uddhava Gita. Vishwanath Chakravarti indicates, implied, all of this is, you're my messenger. I didn't go to the ashram of Narayan Rishi. I wanted to. You go on my behalf, carry this message of these Uddhava Gita teachings, particularly the process of devotional service, the perfection of devotional service. Reveal to Narayan and others what I taught concerning bhakti and gyan, which has special discrimination. When they ask you, be completely engaged in my qualities, such as my intelligence, wit, omniscience, and possessing all powers. By this, I am giving you blessings in order to be qualified for assimilating all of this. Make the sages there surpass the worldly condition made of the three gunas. Having carried out my instruction, you will come to me, you will come close to me, brought to me by my power of yoga. And that's the end of Krishna's instructions to Uddhava. And then Krishna says to Uddhava, now go. Here's some service for you. I responded, I'm not taking you with me. I have some service for you. Go to Badrinath. Carry this instruction to Narayana Rishi. There's the door. And so Uddhava goes. But Uddhava didn't make it because he was feeling too much separation from Krishna, so he doubled back. And when he doubled back, he came before Krishna, as we see this another one of the nice paintings. There's Krishna beneath this banyan tree. There's Maitreya eavesdropping. And there's Uddhava. And here's what Uddhava says. Canto 3, Chapter 4, text 18-19. Canto 3. So Uddhava is in Canto 3, Chapter 4, he's speaking to Vidura. Here's what happened. Uddhava left, second time. He left Prabhas, the scene that's on the screen here, at Krishna's instruction. Krishna retold everything that Krishna told to Lord Brahma. When did Krishna speak? Tene Brahma Hridaya Adikavaye Muyanti Yat Suraya. Krishna revealed within the heart of Brahma. But specifically, Krishna also appeared before Brahma at the very, 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 very beginning of creation, before there was creation. After, we'll see the math in a moment. 100 celestial years he underwent austerities. Krishna appeared. And they had a conversation. Brahma asked questions. We'll hear the questions. Krishna gave answers. So in this verse 18-19 of chapter 4, Canto 3, when Uddhava was going to carry this message to Narayana Rishi, who should he meet along the way but Vidura? And when Vidura saw Uddhava, immediately thought of Krishna, because they're two peas in a pod. They're so alike. They even look alike. Oh, Uddhava, how nice to see you off here in the forest. How wonderful circumstance. How's Krishna? How's Balaram? How's this one? How's that one? How's everything going? He asked all his questions, and Uddhava was just silent. He was in deep, sad meditation upon Krishna. And he says to Vidura, before Krishna left, this is what I asked. My Lord, if you think us competent to receive it, kindly explain to us. That's what he's telling Vidura when he asked Krishna at Prabhas, the last words that Krishna spoke to Uddhava. If you think us competent to receive it, kindly explain to us that transcendental knowledge which gives enlightenment about yourself, which enables one to cross over all afflictions, and which you explained before Brahmaji. when I thus expressed my heartfelt desires unto the Supreme Lord, Supreme Personality of Godhead, the lotus-eyed Lord instructed me about his transcendental situation. So in that section, 3.4.18 and 19, it doesn't give the whole discussion. It's making reference to the second canto, chapter 9. We'll touch on that in a moment, where Krishna does speak to Brahma. But it's just that the Chatur Shloki verses, the four essential verses of the Bhagavatam, and you can be sure that was more elaborately discussed to Brahma, or with Brahma. And after that long discussion, which Maitreya heard, then Uddhava was sent again. Go to Badrik Ashram, relay this plus the prior Uddhava Gita message to Narayana Rishi and the associates in their ashram. So he's on his way, he finds Vidura, or Vidura finds him. He shares with Vidura. Krishna's departed. And before he departed, I asked him these questions. So here's a little. When I thus expressed my heartfelt desires unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the lotus-eyed Lord instructed me about his transcendental situation. So his transcendental situation is described in a later chapter of Canto 3. In a later canto of chapter 3, there's discussion about the unfolding of creation, what Vishnu does, and then what Brahma does after what Vishnu does. Sarga Visarga. What does that mean? According to the Bhagavatam, there's 10 topics of the Bhagavatam. That list of the 10 topics comes towards the end of Canto 2, Chapter 10. It's 10 topics. And 2 of the 10 topics are creation and subcreation. Creation means what Vishnu does. Subcreation is what Brahma does. And details and details and details. Now, how do we know it's true? From authoritative source, we can know it's true. But if you don't accept that authoritative source, you'll never know. What existed before we existed? Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 10. Nobody knows. Why? Because it existed before you existed. So how can you know? There is one way to know. If that which existed before you existed revealed what existed before you existed, then you can know. By authority, you can know. Not imperfect. Perfect authority has perfect knowledge, and that's how you can know perfectly. Say, I don't know. Okay, then you stay in the I don't know space. So Sarga is described in the middle part, earlier parts of the next sequence parts of Canto 3, and then Visarga. Visarga is chapter 10. And Visarga, chapter 10, is describing the appearance of Brahma. We all know it's in Brahma Samhita, it's in Padma Purana, it's in many places. In the Bhagavatam, Brahma, appears on top of a lotus flower. Interesting way to take birth. And because it's before the creation of anything, there isn't anything. There's darkness in all directions. No sunlight, no moonlight, no flashlight, no light. Darkness in all directions. And with that darkness in all directions, still Brahma's inquisitive. He wants to know. It's a good place to start. If you don't know, desire to know. And then you have to get the answer. So he doesn't have the answer. And he knows that I don't have the answer, but I want to know. So he hears some splashing sound. It's the Garbadak Ocean. He doesn't know what it is, but he hears some splashing sound. It's the waves of the Garbadak Ocean. So he then uses his reasoning faculty, uses his senses, he uses his reasoning faculty, but he doesn't get the answer. So he starts to climb down the stem, and if I find where the stem comes from, I know where I came from. That's very reasonable. But it climbs down, and he can't find the end. And then something else happens. He hears 3 times 2 syllables, ta, pa, from a voice in the sky. And he knows what it means. He's supposed to do tapasya. So he climbed back up the stem, sits on the lotus, and does tapa. And according to this verse of the Bhagavatam, he does tapa and meditation. Doesn't say in the Bhagavatam upon what is he meditating. And in Brahma Samhita, it says what he's meditating upon. He's meditating upon the mantra that he hears, along with tapa, the austerity. And he must have gotten hungry because there's nothing. Must have gotten sleepy because he's got a body. Anyway, he does tapa and meditation for 100 celestial years. So I was curious, how long is 100 celestial years? So we did some unpacking. And according to the Bhagavatam, each day in the celestial realm is 6 months here. Each night is another 6 months. So you do the math. 6 months plus 6 months equals 1 year. 1 year of earthly time equals 1 day and night, or 1 day in the celestial realm. That's 1 day. Now, times 30 means that's 1 month. Times 12 is 1 year. So 1 celestial year is 1 times 30 times 12. And 1 times 30 times 12 is 360 earthly years times 100. That's a long time to do anything, right? Add 2 more zeros to 360. And for that long, that's what he did his tapa. And at the end of that period of time, it's not like a bell rang or something, but it's a long time anyways, Lord Vishnu appeared before him, and he appeared before him in his Vaikuntha feature, showing all of his opulences of Vaikuntha. Brahma was very astonished. Of course, he's very intelligent, but the description of what he saw is quite astonishing anyways. And then Lord Vishnu stood to greet him and extended his hand and shook his hand. Means friendship, a rasa of friendship, servitorship, and at least our Brahma, and friendship. And then Lord Vishnu spoke, "O Brahma, you may ask for me anything. The giver of all benediction, you please me very much by your austerities. You may know that the ultimate benediction as a result of all penances is to see me by realization." And that's what happened. So you've already got everything, but tell me what you would like. Anything. Anything. Blank slate. So here's what Brahma said. Kindly fulfill my desire. May I please be informed how, in spite of your transcendental form, you assume the mundane form, although you have no such form at all. You, by your own self, manifest different energies for annihilation, generation, acceptance, and maintenance by combination and permutation. No, combination and permutation, it sounds kind of confusing. If the elements mix, that's combination, and permutation, it pervades everything. So Krishna's presence pervades everything. That's the permutation. And then he mixes his energies in different ways to make the combination so that there can be creation, annihilation, or generation, and annihilation, and maintenance. Now, indirectly, he's asking, I understand I have a service to do. He's very intelligent. He didn't go to college. He's still very intelligent. And he has all kinds of engineering degrees without going to school at all. And he knows he's going to have to put the universe together. So he's asking Vishnu for, how's it work? Please give me the technology so I can build the universe. He doesn't say it like that. He's just asking, how do you do it? Because Brahma's the instrument and Vishnu is the performer or the utilizer of the instrument. There's technical things, terminologies, instrumental cause and material cause and remote cause and effect. But behind all the cause and effect is the cause of all causes and all effects. And Brahma understands, he just wants to know, I've got this service to do. You revealed to me the highest truth, namely yourself. Now please tell me how I can do my service. And that's not the way the language is used, but that's indirectly what he's asking. And then from that question comes the Chaturshloki verse. And this is what Uddhava asked Krishna, that which you explained to Brahma, please explain it to me. Now, the topic, the explicit topic is Sambandh again, in simple, Sanskrit terms, the relationship of all things with the source of all things. You're all spiritual, and yet from your all spiritual existence comes that which isn't spiritual, or at least appears to be not spiritual. So how does it work? How does Maya work? That which appears to be real but isn't real. How does it work? And how do you take the elements, tad angam, that's in the first verse, tad angam is the paraphernalia, the energies of the Supreme Lord, which is a whole other class to discuss the Chaturshloki verses. But that's the last instruction that Krishna gave. He described not just in 4 verses, but the entire teaching he gave to Brahma. And then he sent him. And that was the last teaching that he gave. And so that very sacred conversation and other sacred conversations are all recorded in Srimad Bhagavatam for the purpose, as we've been saying, to give light in this dark age of Kali. It's better than electrical engineering. It's the light in this dark age of Kali. It's the light of all lights. And how important is it to give light in this dark age of Kali? If you can flip the switch that turns light on so people that are in darkness can see, that would be a nice service, wouldn't it? So receiving, assimilating, and then giving the knowledge of Srimad Bhagavatam is a very nice service. And supposing you're not so vastly learned, you haven't studied the whole Bhagavatam yet, read it and distribute it. I got really inspired, so I'm just going to share it because I got inspired. So pardon me. I got a very nice letter that following this retreat that we had in Gitanagari on this topic, Srimad Bhagavatam, Refuge for the Age of Kali. There were a number of devotees that attended from our center in Naperville. And when they got back after the Gitanagari retreat last weekend, they were really fired up. So they had a meeting. How are we going to distribute Bhagavatam sets to turn the light switch, turn the Age of Kali light on? And they have a plan. I didn't ask them for the details of the plan, but they're so enthusiastic. I shared this at Farmington Hills. 500 sets is their goal. 500 Srimad Bhagavatam. Turn bright lights, please. Lots of light. And then after people receive the Bhagavatam, engage them in reading groups. So it doesn't just sit on their shelf, but, not fast, slowly, at different pace of people want to read, but some commitment to receive the light of the Bhagavad. And they're really enthused. 500 sets of Bhagavatams is not a piece of cake. Just this morning, I sent a message to Vaisheshika Prabhu and said, 500 sets. Vaisheshika Prabhu, reach out to them. They'll be very enlivened. He said, you bet. And my guess is they're going to reach the goal. Not just because they're saying it, but, they're somehow enthused. They somehow went in, and they want to. And somehow Krishna will help them, I want to do. So I think I'm going to be doing this. Every time I go to another place, I'm going to be Ra Srimad Bhagavatam sets. That's our Sankirtan movement. Receive and then give that which you've received. And if you haven't received everything, keep going and continue to receive. And as you continue to receive, you'll become more inspired to give. It's just natural. It is pleasing to the soul, and it's because it's pleasing to the Supreme. Krishna is pleased. And the disciplic succession is pleased because Krishna is pleased. That's our life, pleasing Krishna. It's not the only way, but it's certainly a very wonderful way. Krishna appeared after he departed for that reason, to give light to this dark age of Kali. He didn't leave it dark. He brought light. So let's help him turn the light on in this dark age of Kali. It's really simple. It's not painful. It's very pleasant. A little challenging to go against the current of time. People are going that way, and we're going upstream against the current of Kali Yuga. Life's a challenge, so take that one. Okay, Krishna's final instructions to Uddhava. That was our topic for this evening. Let's see if there's some discussion. Oh, thoughtful one. You're often the first one to say something, and it's usually very thoughtful something.
It's so wonderful, actually, hearing this wonderful canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, 11th canto. What I liked about is, before getting into the topic, how did we reach here? That is a beautiful aspect. I was thinking, even in this material world, this is such a wonderful opportunity to associate with person Bhagavat and actually hear this katha, though we can't be there with our current material body, but we can still be there by hearing katha. So really grateful to you, Maharaj. There was one thought which came to my mind, I couldn't get it clarified, and when I saw that, I'm like, oh, I just forgot about that question. Um, there were two aspects which were covered in Uddhava Gita. One is the story of Pingala, and the second one is Ayala Gita.
Ayala Gita.
Very interestingly, about Ayala Gita, the Ayala's story is much ahead in before even 10th canto, but it is concluded in 11th canto.
Yes.
So my puzzle was, when we say 10th canto is the face of Krishna, which is so attractive, there is no material enjoyment or there is no tendency to see anything other than Krishna. But when we see about Ayla or when we see Pingala, we see there is a distraction. It
Yeah.
apparently looks like we are again going back to the beginning of cantos to cultivate our consciousness, not being the enjoyer, but Krishna is the only enjoyer.
Yeah.
I'm just maybe there is a reason I don't know, and I'm
It's yeah. There's transcendental reason. After cleaning, you may go back and clean again. Now, why go back and clean after you've clean again after you've already cleaned? It's not just like obsessive compulsive cleanliness. It's just, you know, reassurance for the reader. It's not like you can't say it again. It's a reminder. It's not like a kick in the shins. It's just a reminder. Don't become complacent. Reminders are good. There's a teaching I like very much in um, the section of the Bhagavatam where Lord Chaitanya is instructing Sanatana Goswami, Sanatana Shiksha, Chaitanya Charitamrita, and the what Krishna does there is kind of like a pyramid. He starts, you know, everybody, all souls of all forms of life, and then gradually, then come up to the human form of life, and in the human form of life, it's rare to find someone that's seeking perfection. For those who are seeking perfection, real perfection comes from devotional service. Devotional service comes from association with devotees, and then verses and verses to verify, to support that statement. Association, sadhu sangha, is necessary to commence devotional service. Without it, it stays in the material plane. And then he, speaks about that. And then there's stages of elevation in devotional service. And then he speaks when one comes to the topmost stage. It's not that sadhu sangha is not needed anymore. Sadhu sangha in the topmost stage it's imperative to start in the middle and in the stage of perfection. It's imperative. So to repeat is not a problem. And sadhus may repeat something not because they see that you're falling asleep or you're becoming complacent or inattentive. It's just, it's a reminder of spiritual reality. There are these two realms, and beware of the material realm. It looks like this. It's not attractive. It may appear. Maya means it looks attractive. It's not attractive. Scratch the surface, and it's not attractive at all. It's a lure for a sucker punch. This is Prabhupada and the Vyasa-san in Henry Street, Brooklyn. Moving his arms like this. Maya is calling. Come on and enjoy me. Come on and enjoy me so I can kick you in the face. In Greek mythology, there's this scene of, I don't know how to pronounce it properly, but siren. So it's a woman, a Greek mythology person. She's beckoning. It's Maya. Come on and enjoy me. Come on and enjoy me. so I can kick you in the face. And then Prabhupada motioned like this, no, I only want Krishna. That is a devotee. So, reminders are fine.
I have a few questions, Maharaj. But this one is sort of related to Prabhu's question, Divya Prabhu's question. I was also wondering about the structure of the Srimad Bhagavatam and how we learn that the beginning cantos are the lotus feet, and we're slowly and surely working up our way up to his face, which is the 10th canto. And I was wondering if, kind of similar, if there is a reason why the 11th canto, like the topics change a little, they're different than the 10th canto. And I was thinking, is it something similar to how in in Bhagavad Gita, we have 6 chapters and the 6th and the 6th, and in the middle is like the confidential. It's kind of sandwiched.
Yes.
And I was thinking if there's something similar with Bhagavatam.
Well, interesting question. The 2 things. My understanding is that there's a purpose behind the structure, but the structure is A and B. The structure is not chronological. That's for sure. And second is it may seem to defy logic, like the logic that you're saying. If you have his smiling face, what comes after that? That's the 10th canto. Well, there's the 11th and 12th canto. The 11th and 12th canto is maybe his hair. But the sweetness of the 10th canto, the focus specific, because in sandwiched in between, 11th canto is Krishna speaking to Uddhava. But Uddhava is this super brilliant person anyways. So Uddhava doesn't need super brilliance on top of super brilliance. So it's for us primarily the narration of Uddhava Gita, as the narration of Bhagavad Gita is for us primarily, not just for Arjuna, us primarily. So it's instruction for us after having completed all of the very confidential 10th canto. After the very the confidential middle 6 chapters of Bhagavad Gita comes another, the modes of nature and opulences of the absolute, and so many things. You have another one?
Yeah, I had a few. So this is more like, I just want to clarify that I understood this pastime that was described. Uddhav and Krishna met twice. Both times were at Prabhas.
No.
Oh, okay, the first time was
Dwarka.
Okay, the first time was Dwarka.
That's Canto 11.
Okay, and those are the 23 chapters. That's where 23 covered that information. Okay, and at that time was someone else present?
No indication.
Okay.
If there was, there's no indication.
Okay, fine. And so when Uddhav decided to go back to Krishna, by that time he was at Prabhas.
Yes.
And Maitreya Rishi.
Yes.
Was there, and that was the time where Lord Brahma's Krishna narrated what he had narrated.
Uddhava wanted Krishna to say all of what he told Brahma.
Okay.
Again.
Okay, and it was after the second time that he left, then he met Vidura before reaching Badrinath.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And here's one little detail. It's a nice detail. When Krishna sent Uddhava the second time to Badrinath, he said, on your way, you're going to meet Vidura. And when Uddhava meets Vidura, Uddhava said, Krishna told me we're going to meet. And Uddhava was very happy. Before Krishna departed, he thought of me. How fortunate that just he thought of me. The relationship is an intimate relationship, and he understood that Krishna's thinking of me just before leaving. How fortunate. So, and then in Vidura's talks, it's another detail. In Vidura's talks with Uddhava, Vidura's talks with Uddhava starts asking Vidura starts asking more and more questions, and Uddhava says, better than I answer these questions, let me defer to the more senior person. Now, senior by age, not by spiritual realization. But Maitreya, he's just down the road. Turn left, turn right, in a cave, you'll find him. So go and ask him these questions. So then he repeated the questions.
Actually, I think maybe another class yesterday, I can't remember which one, but I heard that Maitreya Rishi, he wasn't a pure devotee.
But he became.
But he became, okay. Okay, because I remember reading that he has mixed devotion.
Yes.
But
he became.
by this exchange, he became a pure devotee. Okay. I have more questions. Okay, this one is a little slightly different.
Good.
Lord Brahma, I was kind of curious. Does Lord Brahma or any jiva ever remember their past life?
Their past life? Oh, yeah. Okay.
Because generally we forget. I mean,
when we take when Narada tells his whole story of who he was before Narada, he's recalling his past life.
That's true, yeah. Okay. And I was also curious about, I didn't realize, I never paid attention to in this image, Krishna has 4 arms. And I was wondering
why,
and also, so when they spoke in Dwarka, did he have 4 arms?
No.
Oh, he didn't. So
no.
Okay. And so when he departed, he chooses to depart with 4 arms?
I don't know.
Okay.
It's just the description that's found in the Bhagavatam is the guideline for our artists. So when Krishna was seated in this position in Prabhas, he had 4 arms. When Krishna is in Dwarka, he has 2 arms.
My other questions are from this morning's class, so I don't know if they'd be appropriate.
The Radha. Yeah. Let's go to other. Anyone else in the room has some topic you'd like to discuss?
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Thank you very much for inspiring.
Thank you for your nice kirtan at the beginning.
Thank you, Maharaj. On the Brahma's austerity.
Yeah.
So that intelligence comes from Krishna, obviously.
Yes.
And is it a lesson for us jivas that we need to go through austerities?
In principle.
I
mean, life is austere, but specifically the austerity according to direction that we receive and how to best become purified and undergo austerity so that the mind and senses become controlled. Basically, because when the mind and senses aren't controlled, we're not qualified. We can't receive much of anything. So, to control the mind and senses by some standard procedure, that's tapasya. Controlling the mind and senses is tapasya. It's the essence of tapasya. It's the purpose of tapasya. Then towards what end? Realization of the Supreme. Because, materialists, they do tapasya. Phew. But towards what end? So, Yes, the answer to your question is yes. There's a lesson for us.
So, Maharaj, so in terms of a devotee, practicing devotee, so how can we say, what are the austerities? Is it
Well, let's start with
chanting,
the four regular
Ekadasi?
principles. Start with the four regular principles. Prabhupada spoke on this so many times. It's not possible to enter into the house of bhakti when one is engaged in sinful activity. So therefore, it's a prerequisite. And for starters, the four principles, and then you can add to that, but the minimum, and then add to that. Like coming up very soon is Nirjala Ekadasi.
Yes.
So one can have different levels of, but it's recommended in Hari Bhakti Vilas in many places to observe Ekadasi. And there are different levels of observing Ekadasi. So there's austerity. For pure, not just for the sake of austerity, but for the sake of Hari. Bringing one closer to Hari. That's the purpose of austerity and Ekadasi. Besides of refraining from sin, it's then the positive. And just like we read, in some of these verses, on the Lord's appearance days, observe the procedures for those appearance days. There be some austerity involved, and that's good. Not austerity for austerity's sake, but austerity to control the mind and senses and fix the mind and senses on service.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
I thought you were pointing at the ceiling. I couldn't figure out. Go ahead.
I just have two questions. First one, we briefly discussed that Brahma underwent 100 celestial years of tapasya in order to gain knowledge
And meditation.
Right.
Yeah.
So, from my limited understanding, it is also said that Brahma's actual lifespan is around 100 celestial years. So,
No.
what happens after that?
No. The Brahma's time is not the heavenly planet's time. He lives for 100 years, but not 100 celestial years.
Oh, understood.
Now, I don't know the math for one year of Brahma equals how many celestial years, but it's not equal.
Understood. The other question is that while performing devotional service, is there a propensity or an possibility for the anarthas to resurface?
Say it again. Is it possible for what?
The anarthas or the negative emotions or anything to resurface while performing?
It
Yes.
certainly is possible. Here's Prabhupada. He's a good baseline for anything. Prabhupada, this is Karandar, the temple president of Los Angeles. Prabhupada, before I became a devotee, I was more peaceful. And now I'm the temple president. And I have so much anxiety and so much disturbance. It's so difficult for me. Why is that? Prabhupada, when you go into a room that hasn't been cleaned for decades and you start to clean, what happens? Dust is flying in all directions. But you continue to clean, and gradually it becomes clean, and it becomes a very inviting place to be.
Understood. Thank you.
Maharaj, I have a question from Kanto 3. I think it's chapter 30 or 31, where I'm reading this section about the unborn child offering prayers. And my question is, it's very fascinating for me to learn that an unborn child can offer prayers with so much of intelligence.
It's unique. It's not common. It's not every child in the womb is offering prayers.
So not every child offers?
I'm repeating.
Yes. Okay. I was thinking it was every child
No.
offers. Okay.
I mean, I haven't read into what is written in the Bhagavatam that every child is, fully God conscious and offering prayers. Please get me out of this awkward, clumsy place. My understanding is different. My understanding is it's rare. It may happen, but to endure that situation, then consciousness is very covered, like susupti. And as consciousness awakens, then the child starts moving and kicking and thising and thating, and mothers know, something's going on in there. But that before that, is consciousness is very covered. That's my understanding, and it's unique. It's rare, but the child may. Anything else?
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Maharaj, I heard from some other speaker that when this pastime had happened
Which one?
At Prabhas, Uddhava Gita, at that time Shri Krishna disappeared and there was Srimad Bhagavatam present there. Is this true?
I never heard that.
Okay. And that's how
You can if you remember who the speaker is, you could ask them. You don't have to, but what's the Shastra Praman for that?
no, miss, I heard in YouTube class.
Okay, and I'm responding to what you heard.
Yeah.
You don't have to, but you may want to. Is there scriptural reference? It's
No.
easy to hear things that have no scriptural reference. So as we go along in devotional service, one becomes a little more meticulous about where you hear from, and when you hear something that you're not familiar with, you don't say garbage, but you ask, please let me know what the scriptural reference for that is. It's not like challenging, it's just looking for verification, because that's how the system used by our acharyas, and one who's following the acharyas should follow the same system. You make a statement, and immediately at least one or half a dozen scriptural references are there to support the statement. That's good speaking or good writing, or it's acharya-like behavior. If there isn't scriptural reference, then you don't say it.
Thank you, Maharaj.
There's a question from online, Maharaj.
Oh, look at that.
I was curious about Uddhava as Vasu coming down to earth. Does he have a curse or a story
I
associated?
don't know if there's a curse or a story. All that Prabhupada writes is he along with this one, that one, and the other one, they came from different places. They came to assist Krishna in his pastimes. Now, if there's a story behind a curse or a cause other than they came to assist Krishna in his pastimes, I haven't come across it. There may be, there may not be, I don't know. But without scriptural reference, we don't speak something. Right? I was waiting for you.
Thank you for the wonderful class, Maharaj. So my question, in yesterday's class in the Fountains Temple,
Okay.
you mentioned about that Krishna likes the variety.
Krishna does what?
The variety.
He likes variety.
Yeah, like some are engaging in preaching, some are in all other different
Variety,
services.
Prabhupada's phrase, variety is the mother of enjoyment. You've heard that one?
Yes.
Krishna's the best of enjoyers. So he likes variety.
Yes. And if we
People ask me, what's your favorite food? Variety.
Okay, so my question is regarding like acharyas. If we
Because
see,
if I say what my favorite food, that's all I'm going to get. So it's nice to have variety. Go ahead. I'm sorry, I'm interrupting.
so when like if we see the Prabhupada's mood or Guru's mood is mostly about preaching, but not everybody is inclined towards preaching. So how does that impact one's like inclination towards different services? How they are receiving the mercy of Guru and how that is impacting their progress in spirituality?
Any one of the 9 processes or combination. However, having said any one, it's like deity worship. Some persons are really absorbed in deity worship and they don't do much preaching, but within the deity department, they're preaching. They're preaching by their example. And then it's good if someone's going to be a pujari, just taking that one service, that they have, if you touch the person, you'll get scripture from them. They may not be going around and giving scripture, but they have it. And it's with them. And they can, if asked, they can impart. They're not just, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know, and I don't read Prabhupada's books, I just do deity worship. But their focus is, focus, or etc. In one sense, the whole of Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan movement is preaching. Everyone. In different features. All services are connected to that Shravanam Kirtanam because they're the initial ones.
Thank you.
You looked worried there for a moment. Do you have something in mind in particular? I'll just share something else that came up in this morning's class. This is for the devotees in China. And what I've been doing for quite some time is on a different topic, take a theme and speak on the theme. So that we came around to speak about Radharani. And, there are so many wonderful pastimes of Srimati Radharani. That this morning, we just began Radharani's pastimes at Surya Kund. You familiar a little bit, Surya Kund? She worshipped the sun god. And because it's celebrated for that reason, Jagannath Das Babaji made that his residence for half of a year, for like his long duration of life. And because he made that his residence, then Gorkishore Das Babaji also received Diksha from one of his disciples and Shiksha from Jagannath Das Babaji, and half of the year resided in Surya Kund. And the life of these two, they're Babajis, but they also preached. I mean, when Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur he knew scholarly people like all over the place, but he accepted Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami, Gorkishore Das Babaji Maharaj, because he was perfectly realized, not only in chanting, but in the philosophy, and he could explain anything to such a vastly learned person as Bhaktisiddhanta. But he wasn't, the preacher. But he was capable, and his preaching. Look at the result, Bhaktisiddhanta.
Another question, Maharaj.
Okay.
So regarding like some devotees in the lectures mention that regarding the Raganuga platform Bhakti, Sadhana Bhakti, some say that it will automatically happen while going through the Vaidhi Sadhana. And some say that as long as you are in Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti, you are not going to get into the Raganuga Sadhana at all. So we hear from like both perspectives. So I don't really understand like what is.
So what you should do is read Prabhupada's books. And Prabhupada's, a book that gives the answer to that question very clearly is Nectar Devotion. And Nectar Devotion is a summary study of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. So at some point, you become familiar with the verses of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, and the answer is it's not automatic. There's some additional besides automatic. Bhakti is not a vending machine. That's my phrase. That's not a quote from Rupa Goswami, but it sadhana does lead to sadhya, but it's not automatic. Sadhana is practice, but then within that practice, then there's additional practice, which means specifically associating with those that are on the spontaneous platform. It doesn't mean like standing next to them, associating with them. It can very well mean taking shelter of their teachings and their mood, which comes in their teachings. That's enough. I mean, it's not automatic. It's not mechanical. It's it's preliminary, yes. Purification, yes. Purification that doesn't stop, yes. And then it's not like there's a missing ingredient. It's just an unfolding. One can say, but it's not automatic. The unfolding of bhakti is one may develop a desire for not just regulative but spontaneous, but it doesn't. But then you need the spontaneous association to help it become spontaneous, just like bhakti beginning. It takes associating with one who's carrying bhakti. Okay. Uma's got her hand up.
I think this was from Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. We heard in a couple of classes how we don't worship Krishna without Radha.
Yeah.
So I think the reference was the holy name, the chanting of the holy name has to be accompanied by Harikatha.
Yeah.
Radharani is Harikatha.
Yes.
My question, I was just wondering, in the world, there may be people who worship Krishna without Radharani. And I couldn't think of an example, but I don't know about Udupi Krishna, if Radharani is with him. No. So I was just thinking, is that from a different sampradaya then?
Yes.
Or
Yes.
okay, it is authorized then.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Now there's a detail. One of the details is, in some cases, in some teachings or some sampradayas, the understanding is like Mahavishnu has Rama Devi within, so the forms that are worshipped without the Shakti next to the Shaktiman, the understanding is Shakti is within. That is, their philosophical understanding is these are manifestations of, or avatars or deity forms or forms of Mahavishnu. And that's the philosophical position. And Mahavishnu has Rama Devi within. We don't see her, but she's there within. That's their position. I mean, there's all kinds of what's out there ideas, but that's a common idea. So in other words, they are worshiping Shakti and Shaktiman. It's just not, the form is different, the expression is different.
My last question is kind of random, but I was thinking about it from this morning's class. Is there somewhere where it says specifically what language the Vrindavan Vasis conversed in? Is it Rajbas? Or is that like accurate? Or?
That's my understanding, but that to differentiate between Sanskrit and how the Brajavasis speak, I can't. I'm not a linguist. I can't answer that. But it's kind of like a dialect. It is Sanskrit based because that's where education comes from, is Sanskrit. But it's a dialect, like, of the original language. It's their language.
But when we read like the Gopi Gita in the 10th canto, that's how it was sung, right?
That's a nice question. I don't have the answer to. It's Vyasadev's writing to make it, readable by his audience, but his audience may not have the dialect of the Brajbasis, but for his audience. So it's non-different in that sense, at least. Okay. Anything else on the ladies' side? No? Going once. Going twice. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai.